Actually, it's a good time to introduce Hilary, who has never been through a relationship breakup in her life because she married her and had children to the love of her life. They met at primary school, secondary school, and have been together ever since. So you don't know a bit of what I'm talking about, do you, Hilary?
I do, because although what you've just said is all true, and it was secondary school, I've been a lawyer for many years.
Ah, yes.
And what I would add to what you've just said is that it's mostly women on the I'm leaving you side, and men who had no idea. So women, if a man came into my office and things, he'd say, "Oh, my wife says she's leaving me. What will I do?" You know. And it turns out that the wife has been planning this for some time, as you say. She knows she's over it, and the husband has no idea. He didn't see it coming. And she's been saying things like, "I'm absolutely miserable." And he's just taken no notice. It's been going on for some time.
Yeah, but that's just women going on. You don't expect us to take that seriously, do you? I mean, you're miserable. Okay, well. You know.
No, but if you don't take it seriously, she might one day say, "I'm out of here." And don't try and tell me you're great and whatever else, because I've been over you for some time.
That's very ungrateful of you to be saying that. You know, I mean, look at everything I've given to you. And you're miserable. You could have sorted that out yourself. Why? Was I meant to make you less miserable, is the male response to that.
Because you're the one who made me miserable.
How did I do that? I go to work. I work all hours of the day. I put in overtime. I save money. I give you nice gifts. I bought you perfume last birthday. How can you be miserable?
The reason you bought me perfume was because you were misbehaving.
I wasn't misbehaving. I've told you about that. She came on to me. And nothing happened. Nothing really happened.
Well, it didn't mean anything. That's what you'll be telling me next.
Well, it didn't.
Well, it did to me.
Oh, God, how many times has that conversation been played out over the last 100 years, do you think?
Yeah.
Particularly over the last 50.
It's much more likely to be men who had no idea that there was a risk thing happening. You know, that there was a beep, beep, pull up noise that they just didn't hear.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering...
so that sort of... And so what that does from the woman's point of view is confirms their insensitivity, does it?
Yes. And it is salvageable if they hear it in time. And we have sometimes over the years said, look, if you go down that track of splitting up, if we've caught you early enough and you don't have to, you've got a choice here. And if you go down that track of splitting up, let's talk about what it will look like in 5 years' time, because it ain't pretty. You might like to try and put this back together if you can.
Yeah. But that just doesn't happen. You often wonder also, relationship counsellors, there was a big move. In fact, there was a fair bit of public sector funding went into relationship counselling under the John Key government, even prior to that. I have never seen their success ratio. Have you?
No, but I think it would, again, all depend on whether you catch people who actually want to. Usually, at that point, people are over it and there's nothing that can be done. So there's no point going through any... I mean, it may be that if you get somebody who doesn't want to admit that they're an arsehole for one reason or another, they want to pretend that they are prepared to let the other person, try and put it right. But if not, it's better if they just say, you're wasting your time. I'm sorry, it's done. I think it's better. Anyway.
Well, so you're a rip the Band-Aid off really quickly type of person?
Only if it needs to be ripped off. I mean, I'd always go through that. In fact, lawyers are obliged to, or they used to be obliged to, I haven't checked for recent times, to actually make sure that there is nothing useful that can be done. I mean, they're not supposed to be ripping asunder people who could equally be put back together. But
I'm amazed, though, that the number of relationship counselling services there are in this country. As I said, some of them get government funding, some of them don't. Some are church-based, some aren't. Some are iwi-based, some are, whatever. But there are a huge number. In fact, I had a very dear friend who worked as a relationship counsellor when I was mayor, who also would give me the benefit of his advice counselling couples. But one of the things I always used to ask of him was, for all of the attempts that you make to put people together again, what's your success ratio? He'd look sheepishly at me and say, I do my best, but not very good. By the time they're with me, he would make the point that you made. It's probably too late.
yes, and so it's I would spend my time trying to establish whether there was any chance that could be put back together again, and then, as I say if you're thinking about it, let's actually back up the hearse and smell of these here, and figure out you're going to be poor. You're not going to be, you're going to have to try and have kids between you and them and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you're going to lose half your super ann. And did you realise your super ann was at risk here?
Yeah.
But there's no point saying that to people if they're absolutely determined, because that just makes them feel miserable and still determined.
Well, if you're the male in that equation and just say it's a traditional relationship, might be a farm involved or something like that, or a business. Yeah, the dividing everything up just makes you more bitter, though, doesn't it? I mean, if you lost the kids, you've lost the relationship, but now you're going to lose half of everything that you think you've earned, and it's still not.
And if you've got a business that needs protecting in a different way, it pays you to look after your relationship. What might I suggest? Because
yes, I suppose it
the risk you're taking is bigger than the risk some people are taking.
No, listen, if you look at it that way, I wish you'd been around 30 years ago, can I just say, Hilary? Telling me this. Yes, you're right. So if I pay a bit of time, effort and energy here, I can save or I can protect or secure my investment. It's like insurance, really, isn't it? It's a relationship insurance.
And don't
Why didn't somebody tell me this when I was starting off on all this, eh?
Well, would you have been interested?
I probably would have had to have got my hand burnt in the fire still, just quietly, to ensure that the fire was hot. So I suspect I might have been the doubting Thomas on that one until, gosh, you really are dead.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Anyway.
Yeah, no, but fascinating, because I would suggest, out of all the things that we talk about in life, we talk about politics and Treaty of Waitangi and overseas trade and jobs and unemployment, etc. But I would imagine that still our relationships are still the most critical factor in determining whether we're happy or not.
Yes, I think so too. And there's we've got a part to play in our own life, and we should actually play that part. Don't either take it for granted or be trivial with it. It's our own lives to be dealt to, I think.
Yes.
So
the other thing is, you growing up with your husband, as you say, you were sort of a school yard romance basically, and you're still together now, and sundry children and grandchildren later. But the other thing is, and I've got friends of mine who are exactly the same. Got their children, got their girlfriends pregnant. One in Canada, so hello to John and Shirley. So I talk to you now, and one in Australia, Bruce and Mitzi, who are very dear friends of mine when I was growing up, when I was young. Both got their girlfriends pregnant when they were about 18, I think. Married them, still together. So the thing that interests me is, I guess you grow up in circumstances like that, and with your husband as well, together, yeah? Because you are growing.
Yes, although we married when we were 25, and we had our first child at 30, and I was old to be having a first child then. At that stage, people were, on average, 50% of them were pregnant when they got married.
Yes.
And they got married at 21 for a girl and 22 for a boy or something like that.
Yep.
And I'd be interested to know whether part of the thing that's changed now is that the average age of having your first baby's gone up 10 years.
Yes.
And so that people are quite different. You know, it used to be that you'd leave school, you'd go to uni or get an apprenticeship or something at 16. By the time you were getting married and having your first baby, the people who'd not gone to uni were just about out of their apprenticeships, pretty much, earning reasonable money, you know, and they kept, they had enough money to do something with a house, and she had a couple of kids early on, and, you know, she was back out working by the time she was 30 with kids who were school age, and off they go. And I think some of that stuff has changed, and I wonder whether that's made any difference to where people are going with things. Anyway,
I don't know.